Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the SPC Maker 80A. And just like the other SPC Maker models that I have reviewed on the channel in the past, it comes in its own protective pouch, which is quite nice. So let's take a look what you get inside. This one is currently sat at about £128, but I will link it in the below because the prices change all the time. I don't think that price is too bad. So yeah, it's available as a bind and fly. You can get it with a Futaba receiver, a FreeSky D8 receiver, a FlySky receiver, or DSM2 DSM-X. So you can see it fits in this pouch nicely and it's really well protected. It is a caged model for ultimate protection. It reminds me of the original Flex RC Owl or the Mini Owl, about the same size as that, but we have newer components, so the stack is much smaller here, you can see. So let's take a look at the specs. The motors are brushless, of course, and they are SPC Maker branded. They are 1104 7500 kV. We have got the 5-blade propellers here, and these propellers actually aren't fitted out of the box, and you have to fit them with the screws they provide and use a 1.5mm hex driver. And I think the reason they aren't fitted out of the box is if you don't have a very fine USB connector, it's quite difficult to get to it to configure the software there. But yeah, I've got a really thin one, so that wasn't a problem. So moving on to the stack, and we have got a 4-in-1 Realacc S10 amp ESC board, and according to the website it will take from a 2S to 4S. I'm not so sure about the 4S, but maybe a 3S because it will take up to a 15 amp burst. And then above that we have got a Omnibus F3 flight controller, and it's important that it's F3 because I know that there have been some problems with SPC Maker and F4 boards, so hopefully I shouldn't have any issues with this. But yeah, it's got Betaflight flash to it, it's version 3.17, and it's got Betaflight on-screen display there, which is connected to the camera, which I'm glad to see. Now you might notice that this receiver is an XM Plus, and there isn't an XM Plus option, and that is because Gearbest sent me the Futaba version, and I don't have my Futaba transmitter to hand very easily, so it was easier for me to switch out for an XM receiver there. And then yeah, we've got the camera up the top here, so it's an all-in-one, and it's 25 milliwatt, 48 channel, and it has got a sleeve dipole antenna soldered to it there. So we've got the two buttons, the one at the front there, a short press flips the image up and down, and then a longer press switches between PAL and NTSC. Now it was set up for NTSC out of the box, but in order for it to match up with the on-screen display that came out of the box, I had to switch it to PAL. And then the button at the back is the usual long press to go through the individual bands, and then a short press through the 8 individual channels of that band. So we have got this pod up the top here, which is completely rigid. The only thing is you can't adjust the camera angle unless you did some modifications, so maybe put, I don't know, a foam pad under there, because that's quite an aggressive angle if you're wanting to fly this one indoors. That's going to be a little bit fast for where I live. However, if you've got a big warehouse or something like that, then I'm sure that will be absolutely fine. So weight-wise, it weighs 84 grams without a battery, and it weighs 120 grams with a battery, which is a little bit higher than the website states, but I'm sure it's still going to fly okay. We've got a JST connector on the back here. I would have preferred XT30, but companies are still going with JST, and yeah, so that's still there. You get given a battery strap, but you do have to install the battery strap yourself, and I've had to go in the middle of the stack here because there's not enough room underneath to get it through because of the wires from the ESC. We've got a buzzer on the back here, which is nice, and two LEDs. The LEDs are connected up to the DIN so that you can control them, but it's not set up to do anything out of the box, so I have changed that so that they light up when you arm, etc. So things that I've changed in Betaflight, the modes were actually all set up to have angle, horizon, and acro. I've added air mode in there. I've also added anti-gravity. Like I say, it's version 3.17. I haven't upgraded it to version 3.2, but you might want to do that anyways because there's so many more features there. I've changed my rates. Now I've kept the PIDs as they are on here because one thing I found about models like this, when you've got a cage and things, it's quite difficult to tune them because you've got these drag areas here that flight controllers aren't used to. So I'm going to see how it flies on the stock PIDs that they have given it. I've upped the rates. I've changed some of the on-screen display around here. I added a lost model arm on the AUX 3 because that wasn't there. So yeah, I'm going to be using my Tyrannus Plus here, and I've already bound it. I've checked that the failsafe works. That's all sort of standard stuff really. I have put the command set small _ angle equals 180 so that I can arm it no matter what the angle is. And yeah, I think that's about it for the Betaflight setups. Fairly straightforward. So the batteries that you get given are just a 2S. They are SPC Maker branded. They are 500 milliamp, just 30C, which could be a bit of a pain. But yeah, you get given 2 of those, and you get given 2 battery straps actually. I'm not sure why that is, but there you go. Then we've got a bunch of cable ties if you want to use those for any reason, and you get 2 sets of Velcro strips. Again, I guess that is for your battery, but I don't like to use that. No instructions with this, which is a bit of a pain. I didn't even know which version I got sent. I had to ask them, you know, why this wasn't binding. It was because obviously it was Futaba. So we've got a spare set of the propellers here. Actually, those are gem fans, aren't they? Those are different. That's interesting, isn't it? So they give me the option of 4 blades there as well. I've not seen that before. Usually you get the same type of props. And then we've got more of the 5 blades there, and then you just get given some random screws. I guess these are for spare parts, and this is where the screws were for the propellers, and we got more screws in there, etc. So yeah, quite a good package for the money, but does it fly good? Because, you know, that is the main thing. And also, you know, these CMOS cameras, now, yeah, they make the model much cheaper, but the quality is nowhere near as good as the Micro Swift that we are now seeing on models. So I kind of feel like these are going to get phased out at some point. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, because, well, I think it makes such a difference having these CCD cameras on here. But there you go. Now, speaking of the camera and this VTX, I have swapped out my FPV system. So, of course, you're going to need FPV goggles with this. You're going to need a transmitter. I'm using the Fatshark Dominator HD3s. And I've switched out my diversity module. So this is the Realacc Pro Plus. Oh, it is so good. I know I've said that for a couple of videos, but wow, it really does make a difference. I've switched out the patch antenna on it. This is the Menace RC Bandicoot antenna, and it's a linear patch antenna designed for these models now that are carrying these whip antennas here, and wow, does it make such a difference. And then I've got my cloverleaf antenna on here as well to pick anything up that this doesn't catch. So yeah, that is the setup, and now it's time to go and fly it and see how it performs. Okay, let's go for a line of sight with this one. It's really just to see what the punch is like. We got some really grey clouds around here, so I'm gonna have to be quick. And it's pretty windy, and Yeah, I can feel it spitting a rain. Let's check out the punch. Try that again. Yeah, so not a huge amount of punch, which is expected really on a 2S. Also getting a little bit of movement as well. Let's try that again. Yeah, a little bit of movement on the throttle. I can hear it buzzing away there. Let's see if it still does that in acro mode. No, it stops in acro mode. Oh, it's getting blown around by the wind though. It does not like that. Should I dare to do a flip? Yeah, flight controllers, they don't like to have this configuration. That is getting blown around a lot. I think I'll stick it back in angle mode. So probably not one for outdoors, this one. To see how it flies indoors. Yeah, I imagine it's gonna need a bit of tuning if I want to fly it outdoors. Those motors are really screaming. But it does fly. Yeah, a little bit nervous in acro mode though. Just as I flick into acro mode, the wind picks up. And of course we have more surface area for it to be affected by the wind with that cage. But anyways, like I say, this is really just to see what the punch is like, and I can see that I have no power left, so I'm going to come in for a landing. So as soon as I flicked it into acro on the line of sight flight, I knew I was going to have problems FPV. So it started off okay, you can see here, but then when I do a roll after the maneuver, it sort of pitches backwards slightly and I have to compensate for it. So I do another roll and same again, but even more. And then very quickly, it pitches backwards violently, uncontrollably. You can see there. And then it just ends up in a crash. And I found this to be fairly consistent with a lot of these models that have got cages around them. Some of them don't do it, and then yeah, you've got a multi-purpose model. But you see, flight controllers aren't designed to cater for a big cage around them. They're just not. You see, it produces drag and all sorts of things. Now, don't get me wrong, you are able to tune it out to some extent, but it's an absolute pain. And as you can see, despite this model having its own PIDs, it's just not tuned for it at all. In fact, I tried a couple of flights outside, and the longest flight I could get with it with the stock PIDs was about 30 seconds before it went into that crazy PID loop, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. But anyways, I'm flying it indoors here, and yeah, it's okay indoors, but that camera angle is a little bit too aggressive for me. I guess if you've got a warehouse or something like that, then it'd be better, but of course you'd need to modify it because it's stuck in that position. So really, for me, this quadcopter, unless you want to spend a lot of time tuning it and sort of compromising, is really only good for indoors. And then again, you know, that carbon fiber is really thick, and if you smashed it into a door or a cabinet, I can see it chipping the paint off it, you know. So then it brings back the question, well, should we just keep the smaller models indoors? I think yes, have two models. There's not really one perfect model, one that's great for indoors and one for outdoors. Yes, there are ones that almost make it, but if you want the best result indoor, get a indoor specific quadcopter that's maybe even a 1 or 2S and is not going to do a lot of damage indoors and is going to fly fairly slowly. Then if you want to go outdoors, have an all-out racer without a cage on it, because the cage is really only useful indoors anyways, unless you plan on crashing heavily outdoors. But yeah, this one was okay indoors, and yeah, I was really impressed with the diversity module in this flight. There's a tiny little bit of noise coming from the camera, but you can see that the reception is pretty good, I have to say. And I like that it's got an on-screen display, but this time of year, with it just raining all the time, I just don't have the capacity to tune this. In fact, a couple of dips in the grass and it was absolutely caked in water and grass, so I'd have to waterproof it if I wanted to spend any more time tuning the PIDs. And really, for me, if you're buying a bind and fly copter, then it should at least fly out of the box. I think they should have spent more time tuning it so that it doesn't do this pitching backwards thing. And some of that is to do with weight distribution, but I put the battery exactly in the center of gravity. I found that if you play around with the center of gravity, it does make a difference, but really it needs a better tune, this model. Now, I was able to fly it indoors. I think if I was to have another go at it, I would switch out the camera angle and maybe run it on a 3S for a bit more power as well. But there you go, that is my review of the SPC Maker AT8. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.